So the theme of passed pawn and the outside passed pawn features all over the place in Dvoretsky's King and Pawn chapter, his Pawn Endgames chapter. But he does have a small section devoted just to thinking of it as the main theme, called the outside passed pawn, basically. And I mean, if you've got an outside passed pawn, especially when you get down to a king and pawn ending, it really is such an asset, because the main thing you're trying to do with it is you can use it to just take your enemy king off to the side of the board, basically, if it's an outside passed pawn. And then with your enemy king out of the way, you sort of come in and gobble up all the other pawns and win. It's just such a good asset. This is a game from 1961. It's white to play. White's the exchange for a pawn down. It's not looking marvellous, but it's certainly not immediately lost. You definitely want to carry this on, see if you could do something. The engine reckons we're on minus 1.5. If you played something like rook h1 or rook f1, or even rook b1, apparently. It's suggesting king f2. Not a move I would think to play, but okay, fine, king f2. I think I'd probably play rook a1 myself, but apparently that's not quite as good. I don't know why. Why is rook b1 better than rook a1? I think white is just sort of waiting around here, aren't they, to see what black can do, and just sort of ready to put their rook and king, just try and keep their pieces as active as possible for when black tries a breakthrough. In some, let's wait to see what black's plan is, and try and have our pieces as active as possible to get some counterplay going, try and swap some pawns, basically. But Fischer's opponent plays this rook e1 move, which I regard that as a pretty bad blunder at their level. I mean, at Fischer's level, it's an incredible blunder, but I mean, even at the other guy's level, I presume he was a grandmaster, and that's a pretty bad blunder. Because what you're doing there is offering liquidation into a king and pawn ending. And then just a quick glance at the queen side, and you can see that black's got the outside passed pawn with nothing particularly special going on elsewhere. All right, they might have to set it up with a6, b6, and then a5. As it happens, they don't. But that's just irrelevant. Black's going to have an outside passed pawn here. So I don't really understand how a player of that caliber played rook e1, but they did, and Fischer just pounced. Thanks very much. And surely you could also see that at the end of it all, black's going to get their king to c4. And this is just gone. I think white can resign here with a clear conscience. He carried on. He messed about on the king's side, pushed the h pawn. I mean, it's kind of good that he did carry on, because it leaves us to demonstrate in this opening position. I'm pretty sure that's why Dvoretsky chose it as a demonstration of outside passed pawn. It's a fairly simple demonstration of the power of the outside passed pawn. Fischer just tidied up a bit on the king side first, which wasn't necessary, but he just did it anyway. He's got plenty of time. Do not hurry. That's a theme in endgames. There's just no need to hurry. This outside passed pawn is now just going to be used to take the white king offside, and black just comes in and gobbles up the pawns. And now finally white resigned. So yeah, that was quite a nice position. That was a Fischer game from 1961. Right, next one. This is a game from 1986. It's white to play there a pawn down. Pause the video and decide what you'll do here as white. So this isn't actually that bad. White's got a very active king. Black's got the isolated queen's pawn, so it's not immediately clear how black's making progress. And if white just plays rook h1 with the plan to come to h5, it's very unclear how black's going to make any progress at all there, because you're putting all the pressure on the d5 pawn. That rook can't be shifted with g6 very easily, or if it does, the h pawn falls. Yeah, it's just not clear how black's going to make progress there, and the engine reckons minus 0.3. But a very strong player, and this is a 1986 game, played that, presumably thinking, well, I've got the e-file, because black can't challenge me on the e-file, or he'll drop the d5 pawn. And again, that's a pretty bad failure to calculate, especially at this level. Because black just said, well, all right, you can have a pawn back. That's the material equality, but I'm getting an outside pass pawn here. Now, this outside pass pawn isn't as obviously strong because there's other things going on, as we'll see. But black used it very well. So maybe both players were well aware that black's about to have an outside pass pawn asset. And yeah, white maybe just missed a subtlety later on. Or maybe both of them just missed a subtlety later on and they just sort of played it from here. I doubt it, though. Like, both players are going to have in mind, surely they're going to calculate rook e7. I mean, black's got to calculate. Black's playing rook e7, so black's calculating rook e7, surely. And I'm thinking, because once you go into the king and pawn ending, there's no turning back. I suppose the thing from black's point of view is that, well, it's pretty unclear how they're going to win that rook ending. And at least with the pawn ending, they've got the outside pass pawn. So maybe they had a low. Let's just try it. I can't see how I'm going to lose. G6, and white just gets on with their queenside pawn majority. Very sensible. But there it is. There's the outside pass pawn. King comes across, pushes it. King f4. It's worth pausing the video now and thinking about what your next move is as black. Very clever move. Really, really good move. f5. Dvoretsky actually gives that G6 move, gives that an exclamation mark, and then doesn't say anything about f5. I think f5 is a great move. I think that deserves an exclamation mark. It's worth noting that if the back rank was here, we've seen this trick already where the white king literally can't move now. It's just got nowhere to go, because if it comes here, the black pawn queens on h2. As it happens, because we're one rank further up, that king isn't paralysed in this setup now. It can go king e3, h3, king f2, h2 isn't a queen yet, and then king g2. So we've seen that all over the place. There was, in the undermining video, one of the things I took away from the undermining section, most of the time it seems like you've got to really be patient and get your king into the right position before you undermine. One of the positions, if you undermine too early, you ended up in this horrible setup where this was the back rank and black queened, and you end up in the tragicomedy section of Dvoretsky's book. Anyway, b4, white gets some of it. King comes into d6, king comes back to e3, and this next move is the only winning move, an absolutely brilliant move. Maybe this was the move that white had missed when they decided it was fine to swap rooks and they could deal with black's outside pass pawn. Black played a5, which is really, really good move. Let's just see what happens if white takes that. If white takes that, it's just completely gone, because the king comes into c5 to win the c pawn. White's got to go and deal with this h pawn and gobble it up, but black's going to win the f3 pawn and win the game. So that a5, that a pawn on a5 can't be touched, and that means that white has to defend it with a3. We see a swap off on b4, and what black's achieved with this a5 and swap off on b4 is that they've really sped up this b pawn's promotion when white comes and grabs this outside pass pawn. Because remember, that's the plan with an outside pass pawn, is you push it, and then when you take the king offside, you come in and gobble up all the pawns. So there it goes, h3, king comes across, and black's just sort of counted this out quite happily. White carries on for a bit. It's worth carrying on a little bit, because it's a bishop's pawn. You never know whether you can get into the right position. White actually resigned there, which is a perfectly fine place to resign, as far as I can tell. I thought Fischer's opponent in that previous game could have resigned a lot earlier. with a clear conscience. Here it was just worth checking, is there anything I can do with my bishop's pawn? Because, bishop's pawn on f7 is obviously a draw if your king's in the right place, because this black king's probably a bit too far away. I mean, especially if your king's on g8, so that'd be great. But it doesn't work, because I think black's got queen b4 at the end of it all. Queen b4. Queen b4 is actually the only winning move there, just out of interest. But it's a... it's a fairly clear move to spot here, isn't it? Well, white obviously saw it and gave his opponent credit for seeing it well enough that he could resign. He felt it was safe enough to resign there. So that was that outside pass pawn. I thought that was, back to the original position. Don't swap rooks, basically. I mean, the engine's still only saying... Oh, the engine reckons you could still save it by keeping the rooks. It's only saying -2.5 there anyway. It's probably one of those positions where it changes its mind in a minute. Right, next position. White to play. Pause the video. Decide what you would do. This is a game between Nimzowitsch and Tarrasch from 1911. Two names that you're surely familiar with from various... I mean, they've got their names all over the place in various openings, haven't they? So Nimzowitsch is white. Black's threatening checkmate, which obviously needs sorting out. And there's only two sensible looking moves as far as I can tell. Although one of them's a disaster, which is the one that happened in the game. So you've got to move your king, basically, haven't you? There's nothing else that's sensible for a human being to play. So this sort of looks sensible enough for a human being to play. It loses, and it loses because of the outside pass pawn, but a really lovely little trick that black had that white overlooked. White must have overlooked it when they played king h5. So we see king g4, we see takes. What's the problem? I'm in the square of this pawn. So black pushes the pawn. White plays king e4, and what Nimzowitsch is probably counting on is that, as this pawn gets pushed, we stay in the square of it, and black can't come and take these pawns because they're going to look after themselves. If we see a3, king here, f5, now we play g3. Got to keep those two pawns connected, and if the black king comes in and wins this, the f pawn's going to queen before the h pawn's going to queen before the f pawn, and that's going to be a draw, basically. So that's what Nimzowitsch had calculated and thought it was a fairly easy draw. And then, and if in this position a4 had been played, it was a fairly easy draw. But what he missed was this, f5 check, and he just resigned. Because the point is that white has to go and deal with this a pawn still, and that's going to take 6 moves to go and take it and get back to sort of somewhere in the middle of the board. So I don't know, we might see king d4, but then black would play f4 and not allow white to connect those pawns. So now white has no way to defend their h pawn. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So white needs to go and take the a pawn and get back to e4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Uh-oh. White's lost. So yeah, Nimzowitsch missed in this position. In the original position, he'd missed that brilliant check, f5 check. Oh dear, oops. Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it? Right, next. This is white to play. Pause the video and come up with a plan, I suppose. How on earth are you going to win this? It doesn't really look winnable. I think I struggled with this one, actually. But yeah, I definitely struggled with this one. I didn't think of the winning plan. Hopefully, if there's a similar sort of thing in a game, I've got the the plan is now in my repertoire of tricks. I don't know. I hope I'm doing all this endgame stuff for a good reason somewhere down the line. And one day I'm going to get a game and it's like, aha, that's why I spent hours going through all this stuff, and it wasn't just because I enjoyed it at the time. I mean, the problem is that we've got this outside pass pawn. Great, we can take the black king out of the game, but where are you getting in? There's just nowhere to go. Our own pawn is in the way. The only other idea is to come over to the queen side. Maybe we could take these two, or we could come in and take these. But that doesn't look anywhere near fast enough. We're gonna, or even black can come in and take this one and then push the f pawn. I mean, it just doesn't look fast enough. So you kind of have to combine the two ideas. In that this is the annoying pawn. Our own pawn is the annoyance. If that wasn't there, this would be such an easy win. Outside pass pawn, king into f6, and it's Pac-Man time. Easy. So it's our own pawn that's the problem. So what we can do, the trick for winning this game, is very, very clever, is you basically feint to go off to the queen side, which black has to deal with, and as they deal with it, as soon as this pawn's gone, you change your plan and come back. So we'll see king f5, king h7, king e4, king g6, king d3. We're off to the queen side, and when black takes the pawn, thinking, well, if you go to the queen side, I'm now just going to win this race, and I think they would win the race very easily. Although king c4, there's a draw actually. If you go down that road, so you can still get a draw as white. Is it worth seeing that? Maybe. Let's just see that. King c4, king g6. I'm just going to follow the engine lines now. God, this would take a lot of nerve, wouldn't it? King takes d6, f3, king c7, f2. Oh yeah, this is quite similar to some of the games, some of the lines in it that I'm about to show you anyway. Yeah, and I mean, let's not get bogged down into the details too much, but that is enough to draw for white. But you can see that white's not winning that. But the idea is that once the f-pawn's gone, we come back. And now we've got the outside pass pawn. King g6, king f4. It's done. We're going to see it in some different lines in a second, how it sort of finishes off. But this pawn is just going to get this king out of the way, and we're going to come in and win the game. So back in this position, black might start to realise white's plan and think, well, I can't take that pawn because that's the pawn stopping the outside pass pawn plan on the king side. And instead they might play king f5. But now they're too late, and we just saw that a minute ago it's a draw if white goes for it on the queen side after king takes f6. But now black's hasn't taken on f6. They're just a move down on that last position. Or in this position we can actually take the a pawn and still get in the square of the f pawn. So that's completely gone. I mean, that's absolutely gone. If king h5, we can still take the a pawn. There was something else I was going to look at. Yeah, that's clearly gone as well. There was something else though. I was thinking back in the original position. If king f5, I thought you could actually come and take the d pawn as well. Yeah, king c6, f5, king takes d6, f4, king c7, f3, there, queen. That's a pretty clearly one queen ending, isn't it, with the two extra pawns? Both of them actually defended already by the queen on d8. So yeah, how about that for a winning plan? you sort of threaten to go and win on the queen side, and if black does nothing, you'll just go and win on the queen side. And if black tries to make progress by taking the f-pawn, you change your mind and come back, because it was your own f-pawn that was getting in your way. I really, really like that. And I don't even think I got close to thinking about it before. Hopefully I would now in a similar position. That's why I'm reading the book, right? Okay, last one. White to play. Pause the video. What would you do? And even though it's a similar idea to the last one, which I didn't get, this one I did get, because I think it's easier to see that if you don't do something now, black's going to play this, and you've had it. There's just no way to make progress. Yeah, I think in the previous position I didn't think to give up the f-pawn because I didn't really see how I could give up the f-pawn. Whereas here, it's obvious. Our f-pawn's in the way. Push it. Check. You know. Black's best try, by the way, is probably something like king h5. But let's just look at the various lines. So king h5, we push it again. We really don't want that f-pawn. It's in our way. f6. It's this outside pass pawn that's going to win us the game. Very similar to the previous position, to be honest. But this is black's best try to sort of really be obstinate, because they want our h-pawn forward as much as possible. There you go. It's forced it forward even another square. And even here, it's... even forcing that h-pawn forward as much as possible, this is still just gone. Well, I've got mined squares here going on, haven't we? That one just completely there. So even that was about as good as black could do. If they take the pawn, it's sort of even clearer. Although that's forcing it forward a bit. Okay, it's pretty similar actually, forcing it forward there. But we see this. What do we do here? We've got to be really careful which pawn we take here. So if we take on d5, that's a transposition to what we've just seen, so that's going to work. If we take on d4, I think black's got king e2, haven't they? Let's just have a look at that. King e2. Yeah, that's a draw. So so here you'd have to take on d5. And finally, if black plays king g5, we've pretty much transposed there, haven't we? f6. It's going to be similar sort of ideas. Let's say black tries to be obstinate. King f5, h4. I'm sure this is a transposition by now. King g6. It doesn't matter if we go king f4 or, I don't know, king g4. Takes h5, king g7. I'm sure we've transposed by now. Yeah, I think I recognise that. Yeah, really, really powerful thing, this outside pass pawn. Yeah, so I hope everyone liked those few positions and got something out of it.